Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Milwaukee Planning Commission. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the table in the hall. If you have not picked up an agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process. If you wish to be included in the mailing list for a decision, please add your name and contact information to the sign-up list located on the table in the hallway. If you wish to testify, please also fill out a yellow comment card. We will follow the basic format listed on the back of the agenda. It includes all of the hearing procedure steps. We may vary from the process based on the specific circumstances of each hearing. Next on the agenda is, did we have minutes? No minutes, okay. So then after that, information items. Are there informational items?
Just a couple of updates about comp plan activity. The council last Tuesday pinned down the set of Block 2 policies. We'd gotten some last-minute comments from the North Clackamas Watershed Council, and many of them actually related to natural resources as well. They were about the Greenway primarily, but many of them were about natural resources. So we basically noted that we'll roll them forward into the next set of policies, which include natural resources. The advisory committee for CPAC will be meeting on that. The first meeting on Block 3 policies will be February 4th. And then we're squeezing in new meetings related to housing, and the first housing meeting is January 29th. So CPAC is going into overdrive right now. So anyway, lots going on. Staff's going crazy.
Okay. All right. Well, take care of yourself. Don't go too crazy.
David's going crazy.
Dave, oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
What time is the housing meeting, and who's invited?
Anybody's invited. You're definitely invited to come. You know what time that's going to be? I don't know if it's going to be.
6.
Yeah, but I think we were thinking, I think we were going to try to do it in a 2-hour block instead of a 3-hour block like we've been doing for the other meetings. So I'm not 100% certain if it is at 6, but it's either 6, 6:30.
Okay.
I'll look at my email after and tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
And at the Public Safety Building, I'm assuming.
That's correct.
Okay, next on the agenda is audience participation. This is an opportunity to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. If you wish to comment on an item that is on the agenda, there will be time for comments after the presentation. Does anyone wish to comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay. All right, then we will move forward to the hearing. Next agenda item is a public hearing on the Railroad Avenue zone change. The hearing on file ZA-2018-002 is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to consider legislative amendments to the Railroad Avenue zone change. I will recognize those persons who have completed the testimony cards and given them to me. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record so they may be entered into the minutes. If you are here to testify, please remember to confine your remarks to the application and the relevant criteria and to avoid repetition and irrelevant information. Commissioner participation. Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest?
No.
Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to abstain?
No.
Let's proceed to the staff report presentation.
You'll cover it. Okay. I think there might have been a section of the script there that you missed where you call for the applicable criteria.
Oh, it's not in here, but I will flip to a different, I'm looking at the type 5. It's not.
Maybe it's not.
It's not in
But
here. I'm looking at the type 5, it's not in here.
Oh, the
but-
type 5, right. Okay. Why, this is an interesting application in that it is a type 5, but it's a little bit unusual in that
Okay.
it's a site-specific
Oh, okay, okay.
project.
All right, so the applicant has the burden of proving that the application is consistent with the City of Milwaukee's zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, any applicable municipal code provision, and that the proposal conforms with all of the city's applicable criteria. Okay. The Planning Commission will make a recommendation to council regarding whether the proposal conforms with all of the city's applicable criteria. I now ask staff to cite the zoning ordinance section or sections where the criteria can be found.
19.902 amendments to maps and ordinances, and 19.1008 type 5 review.
Okay. And we probably need to do the visiting the site?
I think
Or
it's
is that- Okay, so I'll just go
sure.
through that. So, back to commissioner participation. Sorry about this.
It's okay.
Does any member of the planning commission wish to report on any ex parte contacts?
No.
No.
Yes. So since this is brought before the Linwood NDA, and I regularly attend our wonderful Linwood NDA, 7 o'clock, second Thursday, at the Linwood Elementary School. This came up in conversation. I believe our land use chair has submitted the notes that we did discuss. A question was raised, if it's only this one section of development, why are there 4 lots? And I did speak out saying that typically these are done in these kind of ways, that they take a larger portion than just what they're going to develop.
Okay. Will any commissioner who has visited the site prior to this hearing please raise their hand? Did any of those commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything different from what is indicated in the staff report for this application?
No.
No.
Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the planning commission? All right, well, now let's proceed to the staff report.
I just think there's somewhat of a question about this type of application. And in our standards, it says if you're rezoning or doing an application for a site that's of this size, I think it's greater than 5 acres, it kicks it into a type 5, but it's not a legislative decision, and our type 5 scripts are written for
Okay.
legislative decisions. So, and as you'd gone through, I just completely forgot about that in advance. And as you went through, I was thinking you called for conflicts and abstentions, and then you had gone forward.
Sorry.
And
I didn't
Mary's
realize.
elbowing me, what about the criteria?
Okay,
So thank you
we're all on the
for
same page now.
backing up, and we should have maybe talked before, but that's okay.
Hi, Mary.
All right, hello. My name is Mary Heberling. I'm an assistant planner with the City of Milwaukee, and I'm going to present for the zone change and comprehensive plan amendment.
Can you speak really clearly into the mic? Yeah,
Okay.
just get real close to it, Mary.
Okay. Okay, so we have the subject properties here on the screen. It is 4 pieces of property. You can see there, they're highlighted in blue. They are surrounded by 3 different zones, R7, which is a residential zone, R7PD, which is a residential zone plan development, and BI, business industrial, on to the south. And the proposal is to change the zone and the comprehensive plan map designation to R5 and then moderate density. R5 is considered moderate density in the comprehensive plan, even though the land use code, the zone code, considers it low density. So that's why there's 2 applications going. So we are reviewing 2 applications. Like I said, the zoning map amendment, so the change from R7 to R5, and the comprehensive plan map amendment, so from low density to moderate density. And as we've mentioned earlier, it's a type 5 process based on the size requirement or the size of the 4 properties together. It fell under the type 5 process that way. So that means you'll review the application and make a recommendation to City Council where they'll make the final decision. So we have approval criteria for both applications. For the zoning map amendment, the approval criteria is based on consistency or compatibility with surrounding neighborhood and predominant land use pattern, a demonstrated need for the zone change, it has adequate facilities, and consistency with the comprehensive plan, metro, and state goals and policies. The approval criteria for the comprehensive plan amendment is consistency with city goals and policies, in the public interest and serves a public need, consistency with metro and state goals and policies, same as the zone change criteria.
Comp plan criteria.
Comp plan criteria, yeah. So we have one key issue here that we wanted to bring up before the Planning Commission, and it's the basic question of, is the rezoning of the site from R7 to R5 and the associated comprehensive plan map amendment appropriate? So a few things we'll bring up here. One is the compatibility to surrounding neighborhood. R5 will allow the lots to be smaller than the R7, so minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet versus 7,000 square feet. That is actually a similar density to some of the surrounding homes to the east and the west. So that planned development on the west end, a lot of the properties are actually within that 5,000 to 6,000 square feet lot. And then the properties to the west of it, there are some that are also around that 5,000 to 6,000 square foot. So they're a little under the actual lot size for the R7 zone, which they are zoned for
You
currently.
mentioned that the PD was to the west. It's actually to the east.
I meant to the
across
east.
Stanley.
Yes.
That R7 PD with the smaller lots.
Yes. The R5 zone also does permit the same types of uses as the R7 zone, so that will not change whatsoever. It'll still function and look exactly the same in terms of predominant development type will be single-family zones for this zone to R5. There's also more R7 land than any other zone in the city. There's about 52% of the land is zoned R7 versus just 10% in R5. So a zone change to R5 would be able to bring in more of the R5 zone into the city. So, as I said, it will be predominantly single-family housing in the R5 zone. The change from R7 to R5 will provide the opportunity to build additional single-family housing than what would be allowed in the R7 zone. It does allow a little bit more density than the R7 zone. Based on that, we do have a housing needs analysis that was done in 2016. They predicted that there was a projected need of 1,150 new homes by 2036. So the ability to change from R7 to R5 will be able to add additional housing units to our capacity. Of that 1,150 new housing units, they predicted that 71% should be home ownership units, so homes that could be owned versus rental property. So in the R5 zone, typically it would be houses that would be owned by the property owners versus apartments or multifamily units, rental units. The housing needs analysis, the H&A also talked about what types of housing in terms of prices were needed. In the community, we have an unmet need of houses ranging from $240,000 and below. We have a surplus of houses ranging from $240,000 to $580,000. One can make the argument that having smaller lot sizes could develop into smaller houses that may be more affordable. I can't guarantee that the developer is going to build houses that are 240,000 or less, but that's just something to consider as well. And so that's how sort of it relates to some of the housing needs that have been given to the city and what we need to meet in the future. So those are kind of some of the reasonings behind the key issues here for that question in terms of the staff recommendation, which I'll get to in a few slides. We did also receive some comments. I gave you some hard copies of comments that we received after the staff report was submitted. So I made sure that I added those to your guys's seats there. And I also emailed them to you earlier, I believe on Friday, so you should have seen those. But if you have questions, let me know. So beyond those comments that you have on your table over there, we did receive comments from Metro. They responded that the proposal they felt was consistent with the Metro functional plan and did not have any other comments to submit. It was basically just saying it meets what their plans are for the region. The engineering department provided comment, which I'll get to in a little bit more detail later, about not needing a transportation impact study with this zone change. And again, I'll get to that a little bit later. We did receive comments from the Linwood NDA. They said that they recognized the need for increased supply in single-family homes in Milwaukee, and they approved the rezoning of the subject properties, but they did also have questions about why there wasn't a transportation impact study with this proposal. And then we received one other comment from a resident in nearby the properties. They had concerns mostly ranging around kind of development in the R5 zone. How is it different from the R7 zone? What types of vegetation requirements would they have, if there was any requirements on building size, those types of things. I was able to respond to them in an email about that. And then they also had concerns about impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. So with this change from R7 to R5, if the added density would provide any sort of negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, especially if the property, I'll go back to it here so you can see it. The one in the middle, you can see there on the top. I don't know if this has a pointer on it. But the property, it's one of the vacant ones. So the property to the east, most east is not the one I'm talking about, the one right to the left of it. You can see that they're at 56th Avenue at the north end. It dead ends there. Their comments essentially were concerns about increased traffic if that 56th Avenue is opened up to the new development. And with this application for the zone change, there wasn't any sort of formal development application along with it. There are plans for that property that I was talking about to subdivide. Right now, they're still deciding on the layout, so I don't have any sort of formalized plans or official plans to provide for you. But an extension of that 56th Avenue is probably going to be something that happens just because to create new lots, they need to access a public right-of-way, and the best way to do it is to extend that 56th Avenue down to Railroad. So there will be an extension of 56th if that subdivision proposal goes through. We don't have any sort of development or redevelopment proposed for the other 3 lots. They were asked to join the zone change if they wanted to, and they did as part of a bigger application together, but they have not submitted or given me any sort of indication that they'll redevelop, at least right now. So the only one that I know of that is thinking of redeveloping is the one sort of middle property, the vacant one.
When you say thinking, is that based upon there was a pre-development?
Yes,
meeting?
so they had a
Pre-proposal
pre-application
meeting.
conference along with the zone change as well as a subdivision proposal, but they weren't ready to move forward with the subdivision proposal at the same time as the zone change. Yeah. So I'll go back to the comments. So some of the responses along with these comments, I kind of touched a little bit on that extension of 56th Avenue and how there most likely will be, if the subdivision goes through, a 56th Avenue will be most likely extended that way. So there could be some impacts to the nearby neighborhood around that. We also have comments to respond to from the Linwood NDA. So they had concerns about why traffic impact study, a TIS, was not provided, especially because if all 4 of the lots developed, there could be a maximum density of 53 new homes in the surrounding area. That maximum density was provided based on without any right-of-way dedication. So if you think about what that means, it means basically when you put a street into a property to develop, that right-of-way is taken out in sort of density calculations.
Right.
So to develop these 4 properties, we're going to have to put in streets. Those right-of-way calculations will be taken out. And so density is going to be actually a lot less than 53. It's probably going to be closer to maybe around 32 homes versus 53 based on some calculations done by our engineering department. It's a rough estimate, doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be, but if they all chose to redevelop right now, 32 would probably be more around the number that it would be versus 53, just based on the need for streets. And there's also a wetland on the property that is looking to subdivide, so they'll take that out of their calculations as well, because they'll have limited ability to develop on there.
Mary, I'm sorry, does that also include the path that has to be put when you do the calculation?
Yeah, so, and that's most likely will be a dedication as well, yeah, and it's public right-of-way, so that will not count towards
Available
their-
space for homes?
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
exactly.
Mary, while we're on this, so I guess the staff report includes comments from engineering that cite 12 to 15 more dwelling units.
Yeah.
So I'm confused with these numbers.
So what that means is that's the change of the amount of houses that would be built from when you did a R7 to R5. So when you go from R7 to R5, you're going to have the ability to probably gain about 12 to 15 more houses that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And so that's a good clarifying question, because that goes into the next part. In terms of their calculation for figuring out if this zone changes needs a transportation impact study, they base it off of that number of that increase in housing. So they analyzed the increased trips resulted from the zone change, not from the full redevelopment itself. And so the increase of 12 to 15 new houses, they look at their PM peak times for that. So a single-family house typically has 1 PM peak time. So you could argue 12 to 15 new houses would result in 12 to 15 more PM peak times. And they felt that increased number didn't trip or didn't trigger any sort of transportation impact study, because the number didn't seem like it would be a large increase, especially considering that, if you can see here, the blue lines refer to collector streets, which are streets that have about 5,000 to 10,000 cars trip count per day. And so the 4 properties are actually on the corner of 2 collector streets. So those streets have the ability to accommodate a lot more traffic than a regular neighborhood street. So the engineering department also used the intersection of Stanley and Railroad, which is the east corner of those 4 lots. And they said that an increase of the 12 to 15 housing units from the zone change would only constitute about like a 2% increase in traffic on that intersection, which they again didn't say triggered a transportation impact study. So that's some of the reasoning behind the concerns from the Linwood NDA about this, and their concerns about the amount of houses that would happen, and then the reasoning behind engineering's decision not to do a transportation impact study.
So, Mary, can I have a follow-up question with that?
Yeah.
So, there are plans in the work that in the spring that there is going to be a temporary blockade on Monroe and Linwood to stop traffic and only make it a right in and right out, which would then make Stanley a much higher used street, especially for those inner parts from 42nd to King Road in that neighborhood. Does that calculation take into effect that you're going to be giving about 1,500 more cars a day access to Stanley because of the amount of traffic that crosses over Monroe and Linwood?
As far as I know, they did not use that as part of their assessment for a Transpac
Well,
TIS,
for this, but
for this
I
particular one.
I
yeah.
might chime in. I don't think that is expected to change the designation of either of those streets out of a collector status up to an arterial status.
Okay. All
So
right.
that's the,
And that's the criteria that is used?
yeah, it wouldn't have that great impact to make that change.
Okay.
Can I ask, just interested, does the city have provisions for, because to do that, it's something called dynamic assignment. Do you do that kind of thing?
I don't believe we
Norma?
do that.
Okay.
But what I'm basing this on is the traffic analysis that Chuck Eaton had done
Okay.
when he was looking at the impacts of those, of potential diverters. And
Okay.
really, the only significant change was that it called for a new signal at Harrison and 42nd.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the,
Okay,
as far as I understand, that's the only significant change.
thanks.
So is it customary, or is it perhaps even in the requirements, this, in the standards for not to require a transportation impact study if the difference in trips is less than 20 in the peak period?
I don't know it well enough to be able to say yes or no. So I don't know. Denny, do you know?
And I'm not sure of that answer either. We often just rely on what the engineering staff tell us. And I think here, in this case, again, the increase of 15 or so trips at peak hour on collector streets is not a significant change. So often what we'll do on a distinction here is this is a zone change where what we really need to look at with the traffic impact. Is there an impact on the transportation system?
Right.
Is it making some significant change to the system itself, as opposed to a more micro analysis that would look at an intersection and the function of that intersection, or access in and out, and whether or not a turn lane is needed? That type of analysis is done with the development.
Yeah.
So when the subdivision comes in, we might want to take a closer look at what happens with the intersection with the extension of 56 down to Railroad, and how is that designed? So there's the difference here. We're at the system level. With the development, we're at the micro level.
So you might still require a TIS for the subdivision?
We might. I'm just not sure at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on this particular? Okay, great. So, and here's just a closer up of where the properties are on the corner there of Stanley and Railroad.
Blue being collectors.
Blue being
and
Collector Street.
Red arterials.
Red arterial, yes. Okay, so staff does have a recommendation. We recommend to forward a recommendation to City Council based on the findings found in Attachment 1 for the land use applications ZA 2018-002 and CPA 2018-002. The Planning Commission has 4 options. They can recommend approval of the applications based on the recommended findings and approval, or they can recommend approval based on any modified recommended findings or any conditions of approval. They can recommend denial, or they can continue the hearing to February 12th.
typically, we don't condition zone changes, because if you can't meet a
Would make
condition, does that
sense.
mean the zone change goes away? So I just wanted to,
So we couldn't
discourage
say, you need to do a traffic impact
Yeah.
study as part of this.
yeah,
Okay.
that would be more a continuance, I think, or we want to, I mean, I suppose you could design a condition related to that might be complete before the zone change happens, but I mean, the idea behind conditioning a zone change, if you can't meet the condition, does it revert back to the previous zone? So you wouldn't take a zone change condition to, plant trees around the perimeter. If a tree dies, does the zone go away?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, things like that, so
Okay.
generally just not a good practice.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we've asked a lot of questions, but ask up.
Can you flip back to the
Yeah.
arterial,
You want this one or the larger one?
the larger, so just for my own clarification, I would assume that Harmony Road would be an arterial road, just by the way that it's built. And so why does a railroad continue to be an arterial, and why does it turn into a collector?
Harmony is a county road, and in our TSP, it's under county jurisdiction, and it isn't colored on our map. It's an arterial as it connects, I guess that's Lake, is an arterial as it then connects into Harmony. Harmony would be an arterial if we were mapping it in our TSP.
So why is railroad not considered an arterial?
Not the number of trips.
Oh. Okay.
But I do believe that section of Lake would be an arterial.
It just surprises me that Stanley has within the same amount of trips as railroad. We might need to.
Well, it's 5,000 to 10,000
Right.
Right, that's
trips
a
on
pretty good
on
range.
a collector, which
And
is,
the- And
yeah.
the peak hour spreads over 2 hours,
A lot of trips.
so
Okay.
you can see a lot of collector things, even though the segments and the way you understand the neighborhood is kind of different.
Any other questions for Mary?
No, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we at here? Okay. Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the meeting packet and those at our desks?
No.
Okay. Great. So now we will take comments from the applicant or the representative. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, commissioners and city staff. My name,
Maybe you can move the mic a little bit.
Closer?
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
good evening, commissioners and city staff. My name is Jeff Bolton, and I'm representing the applicant. I live at 1438 Pine Street in Lake Oswego, Oregon, 97034. And I just want to thank Mary for her work and her presentation here to begin with. We started out, like Mary was saying, with the pre-application conference, and we were aware of wetlands and also natural resources on the tax lot, which I applied for initially, which was tax lot 3000. And that's the property that the developer had tied up to begin with. Based upon the wetlands on the property and the impacts to the 1.83 acres, it's actually, we have about a half acre now of property that we cannot be using. So that's how we kind of came up with a layout and looked at going from R7 to R5. During the pre-application process, city staff recommended that we approach the neighboring properties to include them in this comp plan and zone change. And I hadn't done that before, but we had the developer approach the neighboring properties, and over time, we were able to have them sign on to the process. So that's how we got to the point of where we are for the hearing. And Mary is right, we've kind of looked at the subdivision and stuff, but we haven't quite figured out the layout, so that's why we decided just to push this process through at this time. We've gone through the staff report and the recommendations, what city staff has put together for this, and we're in support of where we are and what they're recommending for the approval of this zone change and comprehensive plan change. I can attempt to answer some questions, but I know the staff report really covers a lot of the things what we had in our application, in our narrative, and then they put the stuff together all for you on the reasoning behind it. So anyhow, if you have any questions, I can
Thanks.
try to help out.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Nope, thank you.
I don't
Thanks.
think so. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So now we'll open it up for testimony, public testimony. I have 2 comment cards, and we go in order of support of the application, opposed to the application, and neutral testimony. And I have 2 people that want to ask a question. So we'll just ask, come on up. We'll have Rebecca Ives come up and ask a question. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, I'm Rebecca Ives, 12223 Southeast 41st Court in Milwaukee. I am here tonight as a private citizen, but in the interest of transparency, I am also a member of the Milwaukee Tree Board. And I understand that we're not in any, so I'm not speaking for the Tree Board officially. And I understand that we're not here to put any conditions on the zone change. It's more of a question about the future discussions on the plan development. Even the maps that have been shown and simply driving by the site, it's obvious that there are several very large, very old, especially white oaks, anywhere from 100 years old to 400 or 500 years old. And considering what we've all just gone through with Mission Park, there is quite a bit of concern about how those oaks will be handled. Obviously, the wetlands is already covered. It's unfortunate that the tree board is just on the cusp of putting together a package that the city council will accept. So getting some teeth behind it would be wonderful, but just to ask that there's some consideration and watch what happens when the plans come through.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was my question. Can there please be?
Yeah. Well, so as we understand it, there'll be, site-specific review when properties come in for development, and at that time, then the specifics about each property will be reviewed. So I guess the question for Denny, so the white oaks are not within the wetland area?
I don't know.
Don't know? Okay. We don't know.
Probably not.
Don't know enough about it yet.
There's a vegetated corridor that goes along the east side of the property that's looking to subdivide, and that also, I don't know if that has the trees that you're talking about, but that's also has a little
Contains quite
extra.
a few of them.
Yeah.
So, and as other developments show up for the other lots, it'd be nice to.
I was going to try to pull up, at least I'm pulling up on my computer, an aerial that would maybe give a little better picture of,
Well, even on the
what part's
diagrams,
forested.
you can see the outlines
yeah,
of the tree canopies.
yeah, it's,
Yeah, the city staff report, that line of white oaks that comes down as a,
some,
between 0 and, well, in between the 2 zeros, I don't know.
some of it is definitely in the,
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
and the wetland is very close to the head of the arrow. So, What they're probably going to need to do, though, also is figure out a way to provide some connectivity between the properties. So there'll probably need to be a road that connects those two in some way, connecting into Stanley, or at least a pedestrian path connecting through. And again, we haven't finalized any plans, but I have seen a preliminary plan that extends down 56th and then would connect over to the property to the east and then on to Stanley.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Rebecca?
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Okay, and Jesse Tremblay?
Hi, I'm Jesse Tremblay, 12103 Southeast Sequoia Ave. I'm the Linwood NDA Land Use Chair, and I obviously sent you guys a bunch of, I wasn't aware that all my emails were sent prior, but so essentially I just wanted to come in and, Joseph, you sort of hit on what my main thing was. So when you say it's an increase of 12 to 15 trips, I mean, there's nothing there. So it's probably more than that is my suggestion. Is my sort of maybe where I don't understand how the process works, but which is why I'm here. So my question was why wasn't the traffic impact study ordered, which I think Denny perhaps answered earlier in saying that it would come with the development. I guess my concern would be that we have 4 lots. If all 4 of them individually don't meet that and all 4 end up getting development without meeting that, then my concern would be that while 32 units are going in, as Mary helped out with that, thank you, Mary, there is, right beyond where you can see there's an intersection that frankly doesn't work very well. And as Greg pointed out earlier, there is any day now going to be a whole lot more traffic with a forced hard right to go down into that intersection. Now, when these houses come in, they're also going to use that intersection. It already, from a how the light works standpoint, we come from the school every day, go down Stanley and go to that light to get back to our house, and it's not particularly efficient. So I'm worried personally about adding more cars to that, and basically just wanted to carry that concern to you. I'll also point out that Zach Perry, who's the chair, asked me to ask you about the traffic impact study, and that's out of all the things I brought to the NDA, that was the one he wanted to know about. So I very much appreciate your answers, and I'm taking notes today so I can go back and explain it to them. Thanks again to Mary for getting me from 56 to 53 to 32. I knew I wasn't right, but to me, it's a lot more concrete for me to bring for the people to understand what because we're going from zero. We're not coming from, there's a bunch of houses there, we're rezoning because of this. It's quite a bit, and so that number, I think, is important for people to grasp, hey, how many new houses is this adding? And so, like I said, I think some of my questions have been answered as to how that process works, and it looks like you all are on it, and always Greg's here, so I don't feel unrepresented on this board, and I don't even think he's the only Linwood person. But thank you for your answers to those questions and your attentiveness to this matter. Is I think that's really the only concern that we had as a group was just the traffic impact, and not so much as far as from R7 to R5. I think we align with the goals of the city on that, and let's get a few more houses in there because that's going to help out, keep them a little bit lower price and all that. So, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Jason?
I was just, you want to go?
Just that his name's Jesse.
Oh, Jesse, I'm so
Thanks,
sorry.
Adam.
Yeah.
I was just going to offer that when we look at these things, we're not necessarily starting at 0. We're starting at what is allowed today.
Right.
And what's allowed today is, closer to the 34 than 0.
Right.
And when you look at the delta between what's allowed today and what would be allowed by the zone change, it falls underneath that threshold of 20. in the peak period.
So
And
that is, the threshold is 20.
in other jurisdictions, such as Clackamas County, that's a common, I mean, that's how it's coded.
Okay.
And so that's why I was clarifying, about our engineering code, which, we don't administer that here on this commission.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen them before where they weren't, a couple of the other ones I've had where they weren't recommended or anything. It was more just the overall size.
Yeah, so I mean, that's how another jurisdiction, nearby jurisdiction handles things, and so that would be a good, I think, kind of way to explain it to, maybe some of your neighborhood association members, that it's, there's certain thresholds that trigger, these, and so it's important to not look at it and say what's on the ground today, it's what's allowed today, and so that'd just be a good way to approach that conversation.
Yeah. I was learning too. I didn't really realize that it was 12 to 15 more houses. So that's the calculation of what Commissioner Edge was just saying. It's like there's already development allowed. This change in zoning allows 12 to 15 more, and that doesn't trigger the study around that because it's not as big of an
How
impact.
much are they, can anybody give me a ballpark? Because I mean, I also, if something's going to cost, $500,000, I don't want to do it because then it's going to make the houses more expensive. I mean, do they vary? Eric, is that something you can't tell me?
Pure speculation.
Pure
I don't
speculation?
know. Yeah.
You can base, your speculation on,
Are they
hard data.
expensive or not that expensive? That's all I'm looking for.
Which category are the houses likely going to fall into? I mean.
Gotcha. You
That's,
got it. Thank you.
yeah.
All right,
Any other questions for Jesse?
I don't think so. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you. Thanks for your
you.
testimony.
I just want to rebut something that Mr. Tremblay said, that I am a fair and impartial juror, and that I am here to listen to the testimony that is put forth, and I am not on anybody's side.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. Thank you for Okay. Okay, so, no other testimony this evening? Got it. Oh, do you want to have a rebuttal from the applicant? You can come on up, yeah.
Jeff Bolton, again.
Yep.
Okay.
Make sure you're speaking to the mic so people can hear.
Yes. So regarding Rebecca's comments on the trees, we've only done an existing condition plan with the wetlands, including the trees on our property, and kind of based on our proposed layout, which would be the next step once we get through, if we get through here and city council, is we would show impacts to the trees, but just looking, it's like 95% of our trees are within the wetland area on our particular tax lot. I can't speak for the other developments and stuff, but, each application would be going through, I don't know how they want to do it, but you would have an existing condition plan identifying all the trees on the property, so that would be the time to address that. And regarding Jesse, kind of the same thing regarding our tax lot. We will end up showing a layout, and we'll end up showing kind of a preliminary connectivity regarding the adjacent lots. So I think we'll end up showing some lots with the subdivision application down the road. So when it's decided between the engineering staff that a TIA might be required, I mean, that would be the time it would come up in the subdivision application process, from my viewpoint and my experience.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's
Okay.
all I had.
Thank you for clarifying. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your comments. Okay. Do we have any other questions about the testimony so far?
No.
You need to indicate whether you do or you don't.
I think I'll save mine for deliberation.
Okay. All right, if not, then I will close the public testimony portion of this hearing. The public testimony portion of this hearing on files ZA-2018-002 and CPA-2018-002 is now closed. Gavel again. No further testimony can be taken unless the public hearing is reopened. Discussion by commissioners. Is the commission ready for discussion?
Yes.
I'm going to let Commissioner Hemer start.
He's ready.
So I don't know if this is appropriate to say or not, but, we sit here and we've been talking about neighborhood hubs and trying to find pockets for density, and I'm surprised that railroad is not an arterial, but if you look at, the applicant actually provided a wider range map, that you have an R3 that is less than a half a mile probably down that road, and you have a R1 that is less than a stone's throw, at least from the easternmost lot. That it seems like to me that maybe an R5, maybe not in all of these properties, but certainly in the eastern portion, could certainly support a multifamily or a neighborhood hub or a multi-use building. I guess somebody could come back with a little pocket of that and try to rezone that later, or it could be looked at a later time. If this is the end-all, be-all, I think that you could probably look at actually adding in a little bit more density than just the R5 and single-family housing, per what what City Council has set their goals towards. I don't know if staff gave any consideration to that, or if that could come up into the future.
Are you suggesting there could be a commercial component to this too? Or?
Yeah, I could see, especially on the corner of Stanley and Railroad, it supporting a multifamily or a multi-use building.
It's a pretty big field.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
in that regard.
And that you have an R3, like I said, a quarter of the mile to the west, and you have an R1. Actually, you have two R1s, really, both sides. So if you know that, I'm directionally challenged, so I'll do it as a spatial look. The 7-Eleven there on the corner across the street, across Linwood, is a big apartment complex. And then behind the 7-Eleven is at least a 50 to 60 unit complex. So all I'm saying is that if we're looking for opportunities to be able to make multifamily and higher density zones like neighborhood hubs and stuff like that, this corner of Stanley and Railroad seems like a very appropriate place to make that happen. So I don't know if that can come back at a later date. I certainly don't want to hold this whole thing up by saying, hey, we need to actually make the density lower, because then it probably would trigger a TIS for sure. But I don't know if any consideration was given to that, and I just thought I'd kind of throw that out. Beyond that, changing it from an R7 to an R5 is perfectly fine. I think that there's a missed opportunity here, though.
Are you asserting?
Chance to look at the map, a comp plan map, going through the comp plan process. If there are locations, places that you think have that kind of capability and need, you could deal with that at the synthesis stage of the comp plan process. Phase, that's block 4. Synthesis.
Right here is not the appropriate time to try to make that change.
All I'm saying is there's a chance to talk about changes like that coming up.
Are you asserting that the public need is best satisfied by a different amendment? Because the word best is in there.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The problem is that I don't know how you want to qualify the best public need. I would say that it meets a council goal. If you would say that the council goals meet the best public need, I also find it very challenging for us to say, well, let's lower the density a lot and not allow anybody to comment on it. I guess they could go back to the city council and comment on it. But
Are only offering a recommendation to city council.
right, but I would also argue that it probably hasn't gone through enough public process, and maybe the comp plan process is a much better way to tackle it than to try to tackle it here.
Well, I would certainly agree with that. And what we need to review this in the context of what the applicable approval criteria is today, and that's what policies are actually adopted in the comp plan today, not what will be a year from now.
Right.
So,
Right.
But anyway, I'm intrigued by the concept that the public need might be best satisfied by a different amendment. But I generally agree that, I mean, ultimately, when you're talking about the difference between R7 and R5, it really seems like overkill to be going through a comp plan amendment to change it to a medium density or a moderate density housing. You know, and it's the different, I mean, you know, the fact that we're looking for the whole site, and only a portion is even, you know, and that's not even relevant to what we're looking at. So the whole site, the delta between the number of lots of, you know, that you would get from R7 versus the proposed R5 is not enough to trigger a TIS. So, you know, it's just, it's overkill to go through a comp plan amendment, except for the fact that it's required because.
Right, rules are rules.
Yeah.
Rules are rules.
So I think that, you know, it's overkill to have this requirement for this minor of a change, in my opinion. But ultimately, you know, yes, it is going to do a better job of meeting the housing needs and satisfying the relevant policies of the comp plan. And as, you know, we've had explained to us, you know, the TIS may come later if engineering decides it's necessary. We have no way, I mean, we can, you know, recommend things all we want to, but we have no way of compelling engineering to require a TIS under some, you know, they have their regulations, you know, and they're going to use those to make their decision about what's required or not when the subdivision comes through, or the application for the subdivision comes through.
Yeah, the trick is that, what the real problem is that the Harmony Railroad, Linwood Lake, whatever that intersection is a living nightmare, and you add one more car into that thing, and it just causes an even, you know, you don't really want to add another car into that intersection, but there are other avenues when you count the trip count, you know, just because that intersection fails doesn't necessarily mean that the transportation system overall is failing, right?
Is there any, can I ask a question of staff? Is there any, that intersection is outside the jurisdiction of the city, right? No, the intersection is.
And it's in, I believe it is in the transportation systems plan as a future project. So.
But not the 5-year.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the timing is.
Yeah.
And I would guarantee you that if you asked any one of these 4 lots, if they're developing and they have to pay for what that system plan is, which is a overpass and all sorts of goofy things, that nothing ever would become of that. So,
but that type of improvement is a citywide system improvement. It's not something that would get
tie into
triggered
a particular
here.
development.
Yeah.
Well, just to temper a little bit about, I very much agree that an R7, R5 it's almost like a tactical aspect of our strategic approach in the comp plan that wouldn't be as big a swing as what we're trying to do, say, with downtown and with some of our more ambitious ideas for connecting, say, including like the North Milwaukee Industrial Area and some other concepts. But I think you can use Linwood as a pretty good example where an R7, R5 is a reasonable and good, prudent change in compliance or comporting to the comp plan. Sorry. On the neighborhood hubs aspect, Greg, I think if I recall, a couple, 3 years ago, we visited an opportunity for a type of new kind of spot zone area between, it was 32nd or 42nd, or near Roswell, near the hospital, where it was the idea of like a neighborhood kind of a establishment with 4 small 10,000 square foot less kind of, and I would hope that we could visit maybe a type of process and approach that can allow that maybe to happen if we don't get a review or a development in on that lot there at the corner.
On the eastern side?
Right. I am the other Linwood resident. I walk around here all the time. I'm thanking God railroad is not a arterial, because it would probably result in a lot more serious pedestrian vehicle interactions, since pedestrians are often unprotected walking on railroad. So, and I think a lot of times functional class it's also a means of understanding what the purpose of it is. Is it to convene a large generator from one area to another? And I would say a railroad, it's not quite the same kind of intensity that, say, International Way does, because it's getting a bunch of employment areas fed from one area to the other. And then Linwood is a school and a major connection between, to traverse neighborhoods to get from a destination, likely a lot of commuters. So I see the appropriateness of railroad being a collector, and in my mind, this isn't that controversial of a move, and I think that we can say this would comport with our comprehensive plan goals. That's all. Oh, and one more thing. Absolutely, when a development application comes in, there will be, the transportation impact study will be able to have in its report the kind of things that we can really look at as the aspects of what is generated by the layout of the development and the number of units exactly, as well as any the right-of-way allotments. I mean, the quantifiable stuff really shows better when you do a spot development specific transportation impact study, versus now what they'll generally do is just look at triggers based on percentages that they use their thumb on figuring out what kind of trips are incurred.
Yeah. Commissioner Grant?
I don't really have anything else to add. I think it's great that we are considering adding more housing. I would kind of agree with kind of whatever's been said about it could probably be zoned for higher density, but this is what's in front of us right now, and so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that, there is a need for home ownership opportunities as well. So while, having greater density and multifamily is important, there's also a need to, continue to add new homeownership opportunities as well, which this does. And I think that's a good thing, to have a balanced housing supply. So I don't have any issues with this, and it sounds like we're pretty resolved. And
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to council the findings put forth and the conditions put forth by the city for file ZA 2018-002.
And
CPA.
Oh, and CPA 2018-002.
have a motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is passed. This decision is a recommendation to City Council, which will make the final decision after a public hearing. Please see planning staff for details concerning the City Council hearing date and process.
Mary, do we have an idea? Do you know?
We do not know yet.
Okay. We'll get it
Fair
scheduled.
Yeah.
And if you've signed in, you will get notice.
Yes.
Thank you.
What was the 120-day deadline date?
It is, I don't have it.
We're well within it. We're not.
Yeah.
We've
Oh, it was sooner
we've got
than,
time.
I thought it was soon enough that it surprised me, but.
No, well, no, you said there could be a continuance on February 13th, but
Yeah,
I don't think you gave out any other dates.
I'm pretty sure we're okay.
Okay.
We've got time.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We do not have any work session items tonight, right?
No.
Okay. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you all.
So we have officer elections tonight. Very exciting. I don't have a script for that, so I'm not sure if I can't remember how we did it last time.
I think you can just make it up as you go.
Okay.
No, it's, normally we would take nominations
Spin the pen.
and then vote. So you could have one nominee, or you could have multiple nominees, depending on how you want to do it. Often, one nominee makes it really easy, but we'll see where that goes.
We didn't plan ahead for this.
Well, no. There've been a few inquiries to see if interest, and it was not conclusive. Really, or?
Are you interested in continuing as chair?
I would continue as chair if that's something that satisfies people.
I think it would be wonderful.
But,
Agreed.
you know, I don't know if
And then a follow-up question
Okay.
to that is it customary for, this is my first, like, I'm rolling up on my one-year anniversary, so I wasn't here for the last year's elections, but is it customary to kind of rotate who is in the officer positions, or is it you want it?
What do you
It is
think about
generally,
that, Greg?
it is generally not customary, but I tried to set a precedent last year by seeing the value of each one of the commissioner members being able to have an opportunity to share in the chair experience. But you get a different sense of the meeting when you're the chair. And I think,
Absolutely.
and I think overall, it helps each individual when they're not in the chair after sitting in the chair, because one, you kind of understand the rules and you understand where everything is kind of going, and it just keeps everything kind of clockworking.
Thank you for that.
So, I mean, if you're willing to continue, I mean, I think you've done a great job. I would absolutely support you. But I see where Greg's coming from, and so if we want to nominate John Henry, then he's not here to defend himself.
Yeah,
However-
he's indicated to me that he is not ready for that with his family commitments.
Did he indicate whether he wanted to continue as vice chair?
He said he would like to continue as vice chair.
Okay.
If,
That's
you know,
interesting.
if that is something that, I mean, I don't think he has to do it. He said he would be interested in continuing in that role if no one else is, but, I mean,
Well-
really, now's that if people want to step up, let's,
Yeah, well, I'm the new guy here, and so I just want to support, kind of what the plan is. And if
Right.
the plan is that we continue to hand things off and, kind of roll
Rotate.
over, rotate every year, I think that's a great plan, but, if that's not if there's no plan and the people who are, the incumbents want to stay on, I have no problem with that either. So it's kind of up to, I will defer to the more senior members of the commission, who is everybody. I'm happy to, to hear what the rest of you have to say about it. And
I think really what what I think that I am hearing is that there's nobody really willing at this point in time to step up to be chair. And so what I would like to do is I'd like to nominate Chair Travis to remain in the seat that she is accustomed to, and maybe next go around, somebody would be willing to step up and try to take that seat.
I second that motion. That's well said.
okay,
Agreed.
okay.
is that a motion?
Yeah.
I guess. I think I just
Yeah,
made
I
a
think
motion.
that's a motion.
All right, so we have a motion to have me remain as chair. Is there a second?
Do we do yays or nays?
Yeah.
Or do we
I
just
was wondering
do?
that too.
We can do
We could just do consent.
vote, or we can do yays and nays.
Okay, well, I would be a yay anyway, so.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, how many yays?
Yay.
Okay. Any nays?
Now, I would also like to take the opportunity, since there is one person not here, and we should always punish the person that is not here during elections, that we continue as Commissioner Burns as our vice chair as well.
Agreed.
Okay, do we have any yays?
Yay.
Yay.
Nays. All right, so we're staying in our seats.
You don't have to change the letterhead.
I tell you what, though.
Budget impacts.
When I step down, you get to take home this because it's no longer worth anything. So you can, I put it in a poster and a frame and everything.
Sure, yeah. Boy, I'm making.
My wife was very proud of
That's
it.
the gift you get.
That's the gift you get. That's right.
Necklace out of it.
Thank you for your service, Chair Travis.
It's been my pleasure.
And for also the consideration of reaching out for interest. I have a lot of commitments and it's tough.
I know lots of people are busy right now and totally understand. So we'll get you thinking for next year.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you for that. I think that ends our other business, but do we have any committee updates or discussion items?
Well, I gave an update about the comp
Comp
plan.
plan.
And the only other thing I might note is there is a cottage cluster.
That's hard to say.
A cottage custard. Ew.
Cottage custard.
A cottage
wanna go
cluster
there.
work group that is meeting a week from Friday. And it's made up of some of the staff, some housing folks, and property owners of the 3 or 4 study sites. And I think probably what we should do is get at least staff to come before you and talk about the status of that project.
Thank you. We're very interested in that.
Meeting and.
Well, the meeting is during the day
Oh,
next Friday, a
Okay.
week from Friday.
okay.
3 to 5.
And but what I was thinking was getting Valeria to come and talk about the project. And she's the,
Great.
Could we have that on
Staff
February
lead.
12th?
we probably could.
I mean, we have 2 hearings, but we could squeeze in a.
Looking at the 12th and 26th, I think the 12th would be a much better date to
Okay.
do that than the 26th. I think that might be a longer hearing.
Cool. And that's a Metro grant, right? Or is that a
Yes, it
DLC
is.
Metro
It's a
grant?
Metro
Okay.
grant. Valeria will love the fact that I'm volunteering her to come and talk, but we'll
Okay, well, that's exciting. Does anyone else have any other committee updates?
So actually, yes, I've been working with the Design and Landmarks Committee for over 6 months now on the downtown design review standards and guidelines project, and we've gone through everything and are now kind of just going back through and synthesizing, some of the comments that we'd had. And I expect that probably in the next meeting or 2 that, will probably be pretty close to wrapped up. And so it's pretty exciting, and I look forward to whatever amendments come from that coming through here so that we can all be apprised of those and hopefully see those adopted. And then separate from that, I can answer any questions about that.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So the process for that is that comes here for kind of, or how do their recommendations go where?
they'll make a recommendation that will help staff essentially, or they have made recommendations that help staff craft a set of code amendments that
Okay.
will come to you.
Got it, okay.
So we'll make the recommendation to City Council, and they'll consider adopting amendments to the city code
Okay,
to implement the new downtown design standards and guidelines. So that's very exciting. And then just outside of the city limits, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at the Rose Villa Performing Arts Center is the first public engagement meeting by the consultant Bridge Economics, who was hired to do the Park Avenue Station Area Development and Design Standards project. And so that's something that community where I live has been very excited about for a while. And so we're getting the first public engagement meeting from the consultant that was funded by a Metro 2040 grant.
Does that include McLaughlin up to River Road or something like that, or how big is that area?
It's a typical station area size, so it's a half-mile radius that excludes anything within the city limits of Milwaukee, because it's all, Clackamas
So
County.
no part of the trolley trail, right? Isn't that the only part that's in the city limits up there?
Well, south of Park Avenue, the trolley trail is not in the city limits anymore.
Yeah.
But the city limits do follow the trolley trail
Right.
all the way to the station.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Very cool.
Another Oak Grove-related project that I'm actually involved in is the proposed pedestrian bridge from Oak Grove to Lake Oswego.
Yeah.
And it is the county is in the process of hiring a consultant team to look at that. This is a feasibility analysis, and if it passes the feasibility test, they will go to a design phase. So right now, it's there were 2 consultants that were interviewed last week, and one was recommended, and I assume what they're probably going to be doing is doing some discussion about the contract and trying to negotiate.
What's the fee?
I don't know, a lot. I don't think I don't think it's that much.
I mean, what do you think the
I don't-
project cost is?
I really don't know.
Okay. I don't
It
want to
depends on
know
if they
what
can
the-
build a walkway underneath the railroad trestle.
Good point.
So the feasibility study grant was approximately $400,000. And the projected cost of a new bridge is in the $20 million range.
Yep.
Thank you,
Sounds good.
Joseph.
I'm tracking this one very closely.
Tracking a lot of stuff.
Well, that's a good one to track.
Two
I was-
committees other that I'm involved with that are in
I was
pushing that project, so.
arguing that it should also be the light rail bridge to comply with the high-capacity transit plan and that Metro adopted, so, which has been in existence for almost 10 years, but
It has been a while.
that line that connects the Clackamas Town Center and Washington Square through Milwaukee and Lake Oswego. Seriously, it's on the map.
Yeah.
I hear you. I
It's a
hear
dreamer. It's a dreamer line, but it's
you. A lot of hills in the way.
It's an aspirational
it
project.
is an aspirational project.
The Southwest Corridor is aspirational in many ways right now,
Yeah.
even though it really isn't.
Any other?
It's money.
I have a couple. So at the last block meeting or whatever, I asked Alma if there were going to be some developers and some builders, home builders that were going to be on the committee for the housing, and she assured me that there was going to be, and I hope that is the case, because I think that it would be.
I don't think that's the direction we ended up going. I think what we're doing is just in continuing having the CPAC meet, extra meetings of the CPAC, but people can come and participate, and we will specifically invite certain interests to come and present.
Well, I hope that that aspect gets carried through, because I think it's important that knowledge be taught in that room, just if not just for informational.
Okay.
And I would also like to announce that the Milwaukee Museum is having a brand-new exhibit starting February 2nd. It's called Milwaukee Kids Growing Up in the Good Old Days, where children of today will be able to learn what life was like before the internet and their phones.
Whoa.
I also want to invite each and every one of you to a very special City Council meeting. That is February 5th, where the Milwaukee Historical Society will be giving their Black History Month proclamation. And the persons that will be leading the charge will be Kimberly Moreland from the Oregon Black Pioneers. If you've never heard of that organization, it is a wonderful organization. It has taught us a lot. And she will actually be talking about 2 of our famous African Americans, one being, of course, the Hadleys, who owned the Milwaukee Pastry Kitchen. If you don't know their story, you can go on Lots Loop to learn that. on the Milwaukee Museum website, and also George Washington Bush. And if you want to know why the 43rd president, I think that's
Yeah.
right. If why the 43rd president puts into Milwaukee history, it really doesn't. So you can go on to Lots Loop and on stop number 1 and learn the significance of Mr. Bush.
Great. Thank you. Okay, did we get everything? Anybody else? Okay. All right, well then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A move to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, adjourned. Thank you.